you are listening or watching Radio Afinju. The time is 9 a.m.
Ẹ bá mi pè é o. Àfínjú. Kí lorúkọ rẹ̀? Àfínjú. Rédíò. Àfínjú. Gbogbo èèyàn ló ń gbọ́ àfínjú. Gbogbo èèyàn ló ń gbọ́ àfínjú. Lórí WhatsApp. Àfínjú. Instagram. Àfínjú. Facebook. Àfínjú. Lórí X. Àfínjú. Lórí YouTube. Àfínjú. Lórí TikTok. Àfínjú. Kí lorúkọ rẹ̀? Àfínjú. Ẹ bá mi pè é o. Àfínjú. Rédíò. Àfínjú. Gbogbo èèyàn ló ń gbọ́ 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 àfínjú. Rédíò àfínjú. Rédíò àfínjú. Rédíò àfínjú.
Good morning. I trust you're having a beautiful Tuesday. This is the Dailies on Radio Afinju, the radio station with an impeccable dimension to broadcasting. The Dailies is where we bring to you stories making the front pages of daily newspapers, our national dailies, the stories, the highlights, the headlines making front pages of these newspapers. And this morning I have here with me the Guardian newspaper, the Nation newspaper, Punch newspaper, Vanguard newspaper, and the Daily Trust newspaper. But before we go on to the headlines, if you're not already following Radio Afinju on social media, we are on Facebook, X, YouTube, all social media platforms at Radio Afinju. You can also listen to our audio streams on our website at www.afinjufm.com or go to Radio Garden, search for Afinju, and you will find us there and hear us crystal clear. My name is Pearl Durotoye, and first I'll read the headlines before we go into the details and the body of the stories. On the Guardian newspaper today, first story here says Adeleke devastated, laments as flood ravages Osun community. Adeleke devastated, laments as flood ravages Osun community. You find the story on the Guardian. There's another story that says the federal government's customs FOB levy on imports. This is also from the Guardian newspaper. And then $4.5 billion fraud trial. Court grants Emefiele's request for forensic examination. This is on the Guardian newspaper as well. And then on to the Nation. JTB okays NIN RC as tax IDs. JTB okays NIN RC as tax IDs. This is from the Nation. Another story from the Nation says that George transfers Nnamdi Kanu's motion to Chief George for reassignment. And then another story says, I can't facilitate your resumption, clerk tells Akpoti Uduagan. And then the last story from the Nation this morning says that Tinubu caught short vacation and is expected back today. That's on the Nation as well. And then onto the Punch newspaper, food price crash. Farmers fought federal government's orders as agro imports hit 2.2 trillion naira. And then another story from the Punch says presidency fires back as Atiku warns of revolution. And then this story says about the Nepal protest. 2 Nigerian inmates rearrested after jailbreak. This is from the Punch as well. And then on to the Vanguard newspaper. Bandits abduct 40 in Zamfara Mosque as peace deal collapses. Then another story says no glitches, no excuses. PDP warns INEC on 2027. That's from the Vanguard. And then 2009 agreement SANU NASU to shut down varsities September 22. This is from the Vanguard as well. And then onto the Daily Trust. FCT doctors strike, services grounded in hospitals. This is from the Daily Trust. And then finally, another story from the Daily Trust says 2027, United Nations warns political parties against hate speech. This is from the Daily Trust. So these and many more are some of the stories we will be looking at this morning on the Dailies. Thanks for joining us. I will be going on a very short break now, and when I come back, I will go into the body of this story. So stick with us. It is the Dailies on Radio Afinju. And you're welcome back to the Dailies, where we highlight the stories making front pages of our national newspapers. And the first story for the morning, this is from The Guardian, and it says Adeleke devastated, laments as flood ravages Osun community. Adeleke devastated as flood ravages Osun community. You'll find the story on the page 5 of the Guardian newspaper, and it says the Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke yesterday sympathized with the people of Iwo on the devastating flood that occurred last Friday due to hours of heavy rainfall. The governor assured the people of the government's efforts to prevent the future occurrence of the natural disaster. In a statement by spokesperson Olawale Rashid, the governor regretted the huge personal losses suffered by residents of the town as a result of the flooding incident, noting that his administration will safeguard the lives and properties of the people. And then it says the governor said his administration had deployed resources to expand waterways in Iwo and environs, in addition to those already done, assuring the victims that the government will take stock of losses and provide appropriate support for them. You can read more details on this story on page 5 of the Guardian newspaper. Our thoughts are with the people of Iwo as they suffer losses due to the flood. So that's the first story for this morning. The next story from The Guardian says the federal government suspends customs FOB levy on imports. Federal government suspends customs FOB levy on imports. A Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, has ordered the Nigeria Customs Service to immediately suspend the controversial 4% free on board, that's the FOB levy on imported goods. In a circular titled Suspension of the Implementation of a 4% FOB charge by the Nigeria Customs Service, dated September 15, 2025, and signed by the Ministry's Permanent Secretary for Special Duties, Raymond Omachi, the minister warned that the levy posed risks to trade facilitation, economic stability, and Nigeria's business environment. Recall that the implementation of the FOB levy had sparked concerns from manufacturers, importers, and customs agents, noting that it would worsen inflation in the country. And more details, it says Edun ordered the Comptroller General of Customs, Bashir Adeniyi, to halt the implementation of the levy, warning that the levy could worsen inflation, erode trade competitiveness, and dampen the investment climate. I think importers will love this particular story a lot, but you can find more details about it on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper Tuesday edition. And now on to judicial matters. $4.5 billion fraud trial. Court grants Emefiele's request for forensic examination. Court grants Emefiele's request for forensic examination. I read Lagos Special Offences Court sitting in Ikeja has granted an application filed by the former Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Godwin Emefiele to engage forensic experts to examine WhatsApp conversations and a mobile device marked iPhone 2 that were tendered as evidence in his ongoing $4.5 billion fraud trial. Emefiele is standing trial before Justice Rahman Oshodi on a 19-count charge alongside his defendant Henry Omoile over an allegation filed by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC). The offences bordering on abuse of office, receiving gratification, accepting gifts through agents, corruption, and fraudulent property transactions involving $4.5 billion and 2.8 billion naira. Additionally, however, at the resumed proceeding, Emefiele's counsel, led by Olalekan Ojo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, urged the court to allow an independent forensic expert to inspect the handset and verify the authenticity of the extracted WhatsApp messages already tendered as exhibit. We'll find more details about. I'm sure at the sound of the name Emefiele, a lot of memories comes to mind, right? But you will find more details of this particular story on the page 4 of the Guardian newspaper as well. And now on to the Nation newspaper. The first story from here says JTB okays NIN RC as tax IDs. JTB okays NIN RC as tax IDs. The Joint Tax Board has endorsed the National Identification Number and Company Registration Number for tax identification beginning from January. While NIN will be used by individuals, the RC number will be used for companies as replacement for the tax identification number. The JTB yesterday in Abuja confirmed that it was working with the Federal Inland Revenue Service (FIRS) to develop a harmonized national tax identification system. The JTB comprises FIRS, 36 states' internal revenue services, and the internal revenue services of the Federal Capital Territory. JTB noted that the use of NIN and RC will enable seamless and automatic generation of tax identities for individuals and businesses, thereby removing barriers to compliance. And additionally, JTB has dismissed widespread reports suggesting that individuals without tax identification number would be prevented from carrying out financial transactions from the beginning of next year. It assured Nigerians that they will not be denied access to their bank accounts or financial services on account of not having a tax identification number by January 1st. I think that puts a lot of questions to rest as at if you will be able to use your bank account by the time it is made compulsory for every Nigerian to have their TIN. So your TIN can now be used as your NIN can now be used as your tax identification number. So you will find more details about this story on the page 2 of The Nation. And then the next story from The Nation. Judge transfers Nnamdi Kanu's motion to Chief Judge for reassignment. Judge transfers Nnamdi Kanu's motion to Chief Judge for reassignment. Justice Musa Liman of the Federal High Court in Abuja yesterday sent back to the Chief Judge a motion filed by Nnamdi Kanu, leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, for reassignment. In the motion ex parte, Kanu sought an order of the court transferring him to the Abuja National Hospital for urgent medical attention. Justice Lehman, in a short ruling, made the order transferring the case file back to the CJ following an application by Kanu's counsel Uchenna Njoku, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, because the annual vacation of the court will be ending today. The Department of State Services lawyer Adegboyega Awomolo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, did not oppose Uchenna's application. More details on the story will be found on page 4 of The Nation newspaper as well. I can't facilitate your resumption, clerk tells Akpoti Uduaghan. I can't facilitate your resumption, clerk tells Akpoti Uduaghan. The clerk to the National Assembly, Kamoru Ogunlanu, has said only a fresh resolution of the Senate or an express order from a court can determine Kogi Central Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan's resumption to our legislative duties. This followed the expiration of a 6-month suspension. In a statement by the Director of Information in the National Assembly, Bula Odu Biala, the CNA said the threats of legal and disciplinary action against its office by counsel to Senator Akpoti Uduaghan were misplaced. The CNA said his office lacked the power to alter any resolution passed by the Senate. And there are more details, a lot of details. Recall that Senator Akpoti Uduaghan is suing the clerk to the National Assembly for not allowing our resume our legislative duties. And this is the clerk, Ogunlano, is telling Natasha that this one, he passed my power. There's only so much I can do, and the onus lies on the Senate to refute to give express order, as it is beyond my capability. So I'll find more details of this story on the page 4 of The Nation newspaper. The next story on The Nation. I'm sure the whole country is happy as Tinubu is expected back into the country today. Barring any adjustment in schedule, President Bola Tinubu will return to Abuja today. Special advisor to the president on information and strategy, Bayo Ononuga, said in a statement that his boss would shorten his work vacation in France. The president departed for France on September 4th to spend part of his annual holiday. It was billed to divide his 10-day holiday between France and the United Kingdom. And last week in Paris, he held a private luncheon with his French counterpart, President Emmanuel Macron, at the Élysée Palace. Both leaders reviewed key areas of cooperation between Nigeria and France and agreed to deepen the partnership for mutual prosperity and global stability. So more details on this will be found on page 2 of The Nation newspaper. Tinubu caught short vacation, expected back into the country today, and we all look forward to his return. And now on to the next newspaper we'll be looking at this morning, the Punch newspaper. The first story here says, food price crash. Farmers fought the federal government's order as agro imports hit 2.2 trillion naira. Agro imports hit 2.2 trillion naira. Let's look at the story. It says Nigeria's agricultural imports bill soared to 2.22 trillion naira in the first half of 2025, drawing strong criticism from farmers, rice millers, and stakeholders who argue that the federal government's policies are undermining local production and worsening food insecurity. The stakeholders also criticized the recent order by President Bola Tinubu to reduce food prices. On September 11, 2025, it was reported that Tinubu ordered a Federal Executive Council committee to further crash the prices of food items across the country. The Minister of State for Agriculture and Food Security, Sabi Abdullahi, stated this in Abuja while presenting a paper at a one-day capacity building workshop for journalists covering the Senate. He said the president's order would be enforced to further crash prices of food items by ensuring the safe passage of products through various routes across the country. So this is between the federal government and farmers, because the president has called for a crash in the price of food items. We'll see how this goes. This is, I believe, a developing story, but you can read more about these details on page 24 of the Punch newspaper. About time for a very quick break, after which we will be looking at some more stories from the Punch newspaper. Don't forget, this is the Dailies on Radio Afinju, and I will be right back after this break.
For an ultimate entertainment experience, an all-round gist with your spicy honey drops. Don't miss the fun, excitement, and updates on Afinju Arena. Only on Radio Afinju.
Apology for what you say, don't play. Or you will learn.
Champions League knockout of all time.
Ẹ̀yin olólùfẹ́ eré ìdárayá ẹ̀yin dà. Ó ti yá láti gbẹnu sí ètò tí yóò máa gbóná rìtìrìtì yeruku lálàlàlá lórí pápá àfínjú. Ìròyìn wo lẹ fẹ́ gbọ́ nípa eré ìdárayá? Ṣé ti bọ́ọ̀lù aláfẹsẹ̀gbá ni? Aláfọwọ́jù sínú apẹ̀rẹ̀, ẹ̀yìn orí kankéré, tàbí ti tábìlì, ẹ̀kẹ́ òmùwẹ̀, tàbí tàwọn abẹ̀sẹ̀ ya máàpù sójú ẹni? Má dààmú jìnnà wá gbanú tí mo súnmọ́lá ọmọ Adégbèrò Big Mo. Níbi tí yóò ti máa wà yín sí rìn gbé yín débẹ̀ já yín sí ìmọ̀ tó ń lọ lágbolé eré ìdárayá lórí ètò pápá àfínjú ní gbogbo ìyálẹ̀ta aago 11 sáago 12 ọ̀sán gbẹ̀rẹ̀ lójoojúmọ́ lórí ìkànnì rédíò àfínjú àyà kàtàkàtà. Big Mo ti wọlé dé gìjà. Big Mo àti ikọ̀ àwọn àyànnà eré ìdárayá lèmi yóò ganu sí lórí ìkànnì rédíò àfínjú. Ẹ má lọ gọ̀ọ́ pápá àfínjú ni.
Life no get duplicate.
Na so ẹ̀mí ò láàárọ̀ o.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni.
Tẹ́ jẹ́jẹ́ o.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ ni o. Make you take am easy.
Na so o.
Radio Afinju says if you drink, don't drive. If you drive, don't drink.
Tẹ́ jẹ́jẹ́ o.
Make you take am easy.
Na so o.
This awareness is brought to you by Radio Afinju.
Idan kana neman labarin da ya cika, maganan siyasa,
Akwai lokacin da zai kawo telecommunication.
wakokin zamani na kasa da na kasan waje, idan kana so ka tsastuwa ko ka tsaya, duka za ka samu a Radio Afinju. Kwarai da gaske, Radio Afinju ne shugaban radio a nan Osogbo, Osun State. Radio Afinju in tsarin yana da labari mai inganci da kyau. Radio Afinju, an impeccable dimension to broadcasting.
Yes, so Nigeria go survive, no matter wetin they won't do or wetin they won't cause. We must survive in this country. You're welcome back from that break. It's still the dailies on Radio Afinjo, where we look at the stories making front pages on our national everyday newspapers. And still we are on the Punch, and the next story here says presidency fires back as Atiku warns of revolution. Presidency fires back as Atiku warns of revolution. This is from the Punch newspaper. And the presidency on Monday dismissed the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar's warning that Nigeria risked unrest similar to the French Revolution due to raging hunger. That's quite an allegation. It described the opposition leader's comments as cheap talk and out of touch with recent economic data. According to the special advisor to the president on information and strategy, it says their latest statement demonstrates a disconnect from the authentic Nigerian reality. Atiku, who lost to President Bola Tinubu in the 2023 election, said rising hunger could trigger mass anger reminiscent of the 1789 French uprising or the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. However, the presidency countered that statistics from the National Bureau of Statistics painted a brighter picture. According to the statement, headline inflation declined for the fifth straight month in August, while the country posted a record trade surplus with non-oil exports nearly equaling crude oil at a 48 to 52 ratio. Presidency also added that foreign reserves had climbed to nearly 42 billion, up from 32 billion dollars when Tinubu took office, after settling more than $7 billion in arrears, including 800 million owed to foreign airlines. So that's the presidency replying with data replying Atiku with data that actually Nigeria has been better under the Tinubu administration. I wonder, what do you think? Do you think this is true? Let us know in the comment section. And then on the foreign scene here, we have a story about the Nepal protest. You can find a story about the presidency firing back at Atiku on page 21 of the Punch newspaper. So now on to the foreign story about the Nepal protest. Now on to the story about the Nepal protest. 2 Nigerian inmates are rearrested after jailbreak. 2 Nigerian inmates rearrested after jailbreak. 2 Nigerians who allegedly escaped from a prison in Nepal during a recent anti-government protest have been arrested by operatives of the Sashastra Seema Bal, India's paramilitary force. Punch Metro learnt from a report by Press Trust of India that the suspects were apprehended on Saturday at Jainagar in Bihar state, while attempting to cross into the Asian country. The Nigerians were said to be among several foreign nationals and locals who fled detention facilities in Nepal after violent demonstrations rocked the Himalayan nation in recent weeks. The news agency, while quoting a security source, said these people have been caught from the border over the last 3 to 4 days after they escaped from various jails following the massive anti-government protests in Nepal. The SSB also disclosed that more than 79 escapees, including other foreign nationals, have so far been arrested across the different Indian states bordering Nepal. I'm sure we already know there's currently ongoing protest, Gen Z protest in Nepal, and there have been a couple of jailbreaks, and according to this story, some of the prisoners have been recaptured. So this story is on page 4 and page 5 of the Punch newspaper. And now on to the newspaper, the next newspaper for the morning, Vanguard newspaper. The first story here, security story, bandits abduct 40 in Zamfara mosque as a peace deal collapses. Bandits abduct 40 in Zamfara mosque as peace deal collapses. This is quite a sad news. Bandits in the early hours of yesterday attacked a mosque at Gidan Telbe village in Safe local government area of Zamfara state, abducting no fewer than 40 worshippers. The attack came barely hours after a similar one at Godai village in Bokoyom local government area of the state, kidnapping over 10 persons. This is just as troops of Operation Fasan Yama reportedly conducted several operations across the Northwest Theater, foiling terrorist attacks and recovering exhibits in Katsina, Kebbi, and Zamfara states. Similarly, gunmen during the weekend kidnapped the parish priest of St. Paul's Catholic Church and also a Reverend Father, Wilfred Ezemba, and some yet to be identified commuters along Imane Ogugu Road in Kogi State. And according to some community sources in Zamfara, the attack on the mosque occurred during prayers at about 5:30 a.m. when the gunmen surrounded it and whisked away worshippers at gunpoint. This is a very sad story, especially considering that community leaders and bandits in certain areas of Katsina State, they signed a peace deal sometime in August. It's sad to see that things like this are still happening in other neighboring states, and our prayers and thoughts are with them as well. The next story here says no glitches, no excuses. PDP warns INEC on 2027. No glitches, no excuses. PDP warns INEC on 2027. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, has called for strict implementation of legal framework mandating the electronic transmission of election results in the 2027 general elections, warning that it will resist any attempt to manipulate the process or undermine the will of Nigerians. Section 64, subsection 4, 5, and 6 of the Electoral Act 2022 provide for recording and transmission of election results directly from the polling units using the smart card reader or any other electronic device determined by the Electoral Commission. Electronic transmission of the presidential election results in 2023 suffered glitches according to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, which made it unable to transmit the results in real time. I mean, that calls for a lot of questions if people cannot trust the process, right? At a briefing in Abuja yesterday, PDP National Publicity Secretary Debo Ologwagba said the party was deeply concerned about what he described as institutional manipulation over past elections. He added that the INEC must ensure that results are transmitted directly from polling units in real time, and he says, and I quote, "There must be no glitches in 2027 if POS machines can work seamlessly across the remotest parts of this country. Then INEC cannot claim that its Beavers machine suddenly fail on election day. That would be deliberate institutional manipulation, and Nigerians will not accept it. I mean, it does have a point, right? If POS machines can work seamlessly, then beavers should. Sensitive machines like the beavers as well should be able to work seamlessly. So that's the PDP telling INEC that we don't want to hear any excuse again. No, let everything be done the way they should be done. More details of the story can be found on page 48 of the Vanguard newspaper. And then for the last story on the Vanguard newspaper for this morning, 2009 agreement, SANU-NASU to shut down varsities September 22nd. The Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, SANU, and the non-academic staff union of educational and associated institutions have informed the federal government of plans to shut down public universities on September 22nd if their demands are not met. The threat was contained in a 7-day ultimatum issued by the two unions through their Joint Action Committee, JAC, which started on September 15th. Some of the contentious issues prompting the industrial action include the non-renegotiation of the 2009 agreement, the exclusion of the inter-university centers in the disbursement of the 50 billion earned allowances, and the non-payment of the 2 months withheld salaries. Jack, in a letter addressed to the minister titled "Call for Urgent Intervention in Outstanding Labor Matters Affecting NASU and SANU members in the university and inter-varsity centers," accused the minister of treating non-teaching staff unions with levity. Right, that's quite an accusation, but you will find more details on the story on the Vanguard newspaper, page 48. You want to know more about what SANU and NASU are requesting or what they are threatening to go on a strike for? Just check page 48 of the Vanguard newspaper. Again, another strike as FCT doctors strike and services are grounded in hospitals. FCT doctors strike, services are grounded in hospitals. The Association of Resident Doctors of Federal Capital Territory chapter commenced an indefinite strike on Monday, grounding services in district hospitals and primary health care centers. The strike was announced in a communique by ARG-FCT, signed by its president George Ebong and General Secretary Agbo Efyong. It says, and I quote, "The Association of Resident Doctors, FCTA, at its emergency general meeting held on 14 September 2025, resolved to embark on an indefinite strike action with effect from 8 a.m. Monday, 15 September 2025. This decision follows the failure of management to address our legitimate demands even after a 1-week warning strike," the communique said. The ARDFCT had earlier commenced a 7-day warning strike over what they called systemic failures in the FCT's health sector. The doctors highlighted poor welfare conditions, unpaid salaries, unexplained deductions, acute manpower shortages, the psychological toll of long working hours, and the absence of new recruitment in FCT hospitals since 2011 as a pressing concern. And then checks at the Kubwa General Hospital revealed that the strike has crippled activities. It looks like 2025 is the year of multiple strikes as different agencies are making requests and threatening strikes left and right if their demands are not met. But of course, more details on the story is on the Daily Trust newspaper, page 6. And then for the last story of the morning and for the dailies today, UN warns 2027. UN warns political parties against hate speech. UN warns political parties against hate speech. The United Nations has warned all political parties, including their leaders in Nigeria, against hate speech ahead of the 2027 general elections. Speaking at a high-level roundtable on ethical hate speech politics in Nigeria on Monday in Abuja, organized by the National Human Rights Commission and the United Nations, the UN Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator Mohammed Malik Fall warned that all parties must strictly adhere to democratic values and tenets. Reports say that Daily Trust reports that political parties have started maneuvering to win various seats in the 2027 elections, and following this, political leaders and their supporters have been engaging in a war of words on various media platforms in a scheme to outdo one another using hate speeches in a process. And then while addressing representatives of various political parties and other stakeholders at the event, Fall stressed that democracy must be about inclusion, pluralism, and public participation of everyone respectfully. He urged political parties to lead by example and make their campaigns about policies and ideas, not insults or divisive rhetoric. More details on this story can be found on page 13 of the Daily Trust newspaper, and I will, as a personal note, also extend this warning to not just political parties but Nigerians generally. Right? We should stop spreading hate speech or spreading violence through our words. Right? Everything. This is a democracy, so slow words, trying to counter one another. I mean, if you must argue or if you must discuss, you can do these things as enlightened people. You can respectfully air your opinions, especially on social media. And that marks the last story for the day and the end of the dailies for this morning. I'm sure now, if you're looking for details about a particular story, you know where to look. Join us again tomorrow on another edition of the Dailies, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday to Friday on every day on radio Afinju. Again, my name is Pearl Durotoye. Don't forget, you can follow Radio Afinju on all social media platforms: Facebook, X, YouTube, all at Radio Afinju. Until I come your way again next time, have a beautiful Tuesday. Thank you to Engineer John for setting me up.